Europe and the rest of the world.
So David Shedd, how do you expect to see policy change or be reconfigured in some way, whether it's North Korea, Russia, Iran?
I think that the ability of Mike Pompeo, both now in his director of CIA role and now as Secretary of State, should he be confirmed, will give the president truth to power. And I think he will do that as a result of the relationship that he has. And so on those key countries that you mentioned and topics that are associated with that, I think Secretary Pompeo will tell the president when he's off the mark. And I think it will be taken in the kind of relationship that they've built over the last 14 months.
What does that mean, say, for North Korea?
I think he will tell the president that ultimately the eye on the ball is denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And that nothing short of that, and with all that goes along with that in terms of having the capability to attest to the fact that Kim Jong-un is denuclearizing the peninsula, will be something that he can drive President Trump to accept as an outcome, and nothing short.
David Ignatius, what would you add to that with regard to North Korea, and what about U.S. relations with Russia, where the president seems to resist wanting to give a full-throated criticism of Russia's role and more? People are calling for him to condemn Russia's activities, not just in the election, but Syria and on down the list.
If Mike Pompeo is a trusted representative, trusted emissary for President Trump, as was suggested a moment ago, the idea of going to Pyongyang to begin to set the table for the conversations is crucial. Pompeo's thoroughly read into the intelligence about the Korea situation, obviously. I just should note, with Tillerson on the way out, the intellectual architect of this idea of engagement with North Korea, establishing the conditions for negotiations, was Rex Tillerson's work. He took it very seriously. The president is now benefiting from the work that was done. Russia is the biggest unasked question for the administration. They haven't really gotten to the point of thinking clearly about strategy. Again, that's something that Pompeo ought to be able to drive, because the president will listen to him. The president has to look Russian aggression and mischief in the eye and begin to deal with it. Otherwise, we're just, as a country, we're going to have an increasing problem.
As you said, irony with regard to the approach, diplomatic approach to North Korea. But Nick Burns, how would you measure a change in the U.S. approach to Russia at this point?
Well, there's an immediate question, Judy. Probably the next 24 hours, the British Prime Minister will very likely tell the House of Commons tomorrow that it was Russia that engineered this nerve agent attack in Salisbury, England. The United States has to stand squarely behind Britain. Britain may go to the NATO alliance, not to go to war with Russia, but to exact further sanctions against Russia. And the Trump administration, including the president this morning, very Delphic about what they're going to do in supporting Britain. I think there's only one answer. We have to be behind Britain and lead the NATO alliance to deter Putin from any further such attacks. There's also, of course, the invasion of our election in 2016, the conspiracy to undermine our election. And one would hope that Mike Pompeo could convince President Trump, finally, that we have to be critical of President Putin and raise our defenses for the 2018 and 2020 elections.
David Shedd, do you have a clear expectation of what we'll see on Russia with regard to Russia?
I think that Mike Pompeo, coming with the knowledge that he has of working at CIA, about the active measures that the Russians have been involved in for decades, and most recently using the means of technology, that in fact he will, as Nick suggests, be able to reach the president with the high impact of what those active measures are by way of intromission into our political system and undercutting democracy at a full scale.
Does that mean taking a tougher line?
It absolutely means taking a tougher line. It's recognizing that perhaps in Italy, in their elections, for example, calling it out in terms of the constant Russian efforts to divide and conquer NATO by way of their activities, the support for the Baltic countries, and you can go on and on.
And just finally and quickly, David Ignatius, a word about the incoming CIA director or the designate, Gina Haspel. What do we know about her? What should we expect?
Gina Haspel is a career CIA operations officer. She has been in some important and sensitive positions. One that's going to draw a lot of controversy is her role running a black site for detention and interrogation in Thailand. It's really important and worth noting that she will be, if confirmed, the first woman director of the CIA. That's a big position. It's a significant glass ceiling that's been broken. She'll have, I think, strong support of the workforce and probably support from people in the Obama administration who know her and worked with her.
And Nick Burns, 20 seconds.
A very significant appointment. What the president needs is a tight national security team. He has a star in Jim Mattis. If Mattis, Pompeo, Haspel can work well together, then the president ought to listen to them, because the president has not been an effective president so far in his presidency with the rest of the world.
Well, this was a day when eyes were riveted on this president and the changes he is capable of making. Nick Burns, David Ignatius, David Shedd. Gentlemen, thank you all.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
And we return